everyone. We're back here at Modern Life Podcast. It's Tabby and
Stacy.
And we are discussing the 2008 Sense Sensibility. Just to let you know, we've kind of expanded our online presence. We are now on Instagram. We have a Twitter that's at Modern Life Pod. Instagram is also Modern Life Pod. You can also find our episodes online on the website, but otherwise just access them through Stitcher, Google, whatever platform you're using.
From the beloved novel by Jane Austen.
Mama, we need to think very differently now.
I suppose you would have us live in a rabbit hutch.
A cottage would answer very well.
A new adaptation by Andrew Davis.
So yeah, let's get going. Just a quick summary. Sense and Sensibility is a Jane Austen novel. It's the one with the three sisters, but only two of them matter.
We're doing the mini-series that was on BBC. Yeah, the most popular version is probably the one that was done in 1995 with Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet. And then, yeah, this one was done in 2008.
You got it. So just a quick review. I know some of these novels you've maybe read in high school and just kind of need a quick refresher. They kind of lose their fortune because there are no men in the family to inherit. They then the family moves to a small cottage. And it's kind of about the love life of the two sisters. One of them falls in love with a scoundrel, we learn later on, then ends up with the colonel of the neighborhood. And then that's the sensibility one. And the sense one, Eleanor, ends up with it's her cousin, right?
Cousin-in-law. By marriage.
Something like that.
And it's not really even her real brother. It's her
half-brother. Yeah.
Is the one that actually puts them in destitute because he's supposed to have taken care of them. He promised his father. And his wife, who's a greedy kind of do-gooder, who is the sister of who ends up...
Yes.
Yes, right?
Yes. This is a really great segue because I want to talk about that first... I think in the book, when I was first reading this, I was kind of confused who the main character even was, because you're just with this brother and his awful wife, and them talking about how they're going to give the girls less and less and less. They go from like 100 pounds to 50 pounds to maybe we'll just give them like a piece of meat every once in a while. And having seen this in multiple adaptations, it's usually just them in a room talking. What this one does really well is it uses different settings. I think they're in the house and they walk out the stairs and they're in a carriage, and then it adds certain dynamic element to that. And I think that's important in period drama in general because, like my brother always says, it's just a bunch of people sitting around and talking, which is another reason why he's not on this podcast. But,
yeah, he is not a fan of this. Any period piece he's done. I think the only period piece we got him to watch was actually the Pride and Prejudice.
And zombies.
And zombie movie.
Yep.
Yeah, but that wasn't, you're right, that is a great segue.
I love that whole first piece of them arriving at the manor and the three girls and the mom are just all in black and they're waiting for them to arrive.
I just think they did a really nice job of like building up to showing the relationship without having to explain the relationship.
Yes.
So like the build up to it, you can like feel the tension, you can feel the like the uncomfortableness, and it's like and you just see it, and then Fanny does it. The person who plays Fanny in the movie, Fanny is the wife, whatever. She's awful, but she does such a good job at like portraying it, in my opinion. Like
it's
how
the little
like
things.
it's like so small because she's so reserved, but she like takes her stabs like when she can, but it's done in such an elegant way.
So they've basically come to they now own the house. I can't even imagine that somebody just comes into your house and is like, no, you're like a guest here now.
Yeah.
Because I now own this house. And when they welcome them at the door, Fanny is the first one to walk in. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah,
and then the brother's the only
like,
one who waits for his sister because his sister's kind of like, what the F? Like, it's already started.
Well, it's not that's his stepmom.
Oh, the stepmom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the brother is from his first wife.
Yes.
And but he still respects the fact that it's her. She's the matriarch, and his wife just like completely washes over.
I mean,
it like
they
it doesn't matter.
Arrived like an hour after the dad has died. Like,
Yeah.
they do not wait
No.
for any kind
It's
of
like
grieving
not.
to pass.
But this is also like very soon after they introduce Edward, who becomes the love interest of Eleanor.
Did you like Dan Stevens in that role? Because I really do.
I think that he does a phenomenal job, but I think that his portrayal is completely opposite than the portrayal in the book.
Really?
Yeah, because he comes off super confident and like kind of like there's not in the book they done like a kind of stumbling. He stumbles a lot. He's like kind of awkward and kind of and I actually think that Hugh Grant did a better job at that. But I liked Dan Stevens more. I liked his role better. I almost wish that because he was more of a lead for me than in the book, which was interesting.
But he does have those moments, like when he comes into the room and he sees it's kind of an awkward situation, and he does kind of this like this like not knowing what to say. I don't know. I feel like to me he plays that really well. But
he just through the whole thing he just comes off way like just so confident in everything. I mean, he may have like a moment of like stutter, but he doesn't like. I don't feel awkward around him. He's too much of a leading character, almost to the which I didn't feel with Edward in the book. I said he's kind of
he's a little blobby.
Yeah. Blobby, like awkward, and this guy come off and he's like super good looking, and he has no problem like stabbing at his sister, and like I don't know. There was just too much confidence, and I loved it, but it was very different than the book.
That's a really good point. Another person who's not at all like she is in the book is the mom, because the mom is described to be a little more like Marianne, a little too emotional, a little too can't really assess things in a logical way. And this mom, she's probably my favorite mom out of all the adaptations, and she does so many things that are just so powerful and badass. Like when Fanny tells her, your daughter can't marry Edward, and she's like, thanks for telling me, and then she comes upstairs and she's like, we're getting the F out of here, and I'm like, yeah, go mom. Like, mom is awesome. I love her.
There was a little bit of a duality in her character though, because she would have moments like that where she would be like, we're leaving, we're going, and then she would have another moment where she would be like, I can't decide without Eleanor's help. So it was interesting to kind of see the duality, and she pulled it off. But it was an interesting perspective because it was very different than it was in the book.
Well, because the things she was deciding on were not. It took a little time for her to sink in that her life is going to be completely different now.
But I guess those leading control, like those moments where she takes control, are all emotional based versus rational based, which I guess is interesting because you did bring up that part where she is a lot more like Marianne, where she's very emotional and she reacts that way.
Yeah.
So I guess it makes sense. She pulled it off. It was interesting to see the duality.
Kind of like talking about their change in financial situation. There are so many of these where they move into the cottage, and I'm like, that is still 20 million times better than anything I've ever lived in. And they're like, oh no, we're in this poor little cottage,
and we still have 2 servants.
But this one actually makes a point of like, oh no, the ceiling is crooked. You have to bend your head to get in. They don't know how to light a fire. They can't afford sugar. I believe it in this version a lot more than I do in many of the other ones. And I also love that they set it by the sea, which was not in the book, except for Sense and Sensibility and sea monsters. But it kind of adds something to it. Very charming.
Yeah, they chose a New Devon, I think it's called. North Devon. Sorry, North Devon is where they filmed it. And actually, they had some weather issues there when they were filming.
Really?
Yeah,
Tell me about it.
When they got there, it was like when they were setting up for the filming, it was all beautiful and like sunny. And then they had brought a rain, like a fake rain shing. And then literally the second they started shooting, it started pouring. And so they had to film the movie, which kind of added to the scenes because actually that was one of the things that I really liked about this movie was how it was shot. They have so many beautiful moments of like pausing on like rocks, like whatever, and it draws in a bleakness to the area, even though it's so beautiful that I thought that it portrayed the movie very well, like supported it.
I totally agree. Let's see. What else did you have?
I really want to talk about the relationship because this is the only flaw I found in the like something that didn't work for me. There was actually 2 things. One was the
Colonel Brandon.
Colonel
Yeah,
Brandon
yeah.
and Eleanor's friendship.
Yeah.
I did not see it in the movie. I mean, in the show, I didn't there was no. I didn't feel it. And in the book, it was like they were like besties. And
Besties to the point where everyone else was like, "Oh, are they about to get it
Yeah.
on?" And in this version, I think you're right that it didn't.
they just didn't.
They
pull
didn't
it
make
off.
time for that.
No, they like didn't pull it off, and they didn't develop it, and there was like never. There was such a mutual respect between them in the book, where you were just like you could tell that they genuinely cared about each other and that they liked each other. But in the movie, in this show, it just like it didn't. It fell for me, and it seemed a little lacking. Like it bothered me, because in other adaptations, like I really love the guy that played Colonel Brandon in the 1995 movie.
Oh yeah, you can't
he
compete
was,
with
like,
Alan Rickman.
He
Yeah.
was so amazing. It was like really hard for me to try and see it. And I think the other guy did a good job of like coming off reserved at the same time as coming off, warm too. You know what I mean? Like being able to pull off the duality of his nature. But he just didn't. I could never see he did a really nice job with the Marianne and his emotions there.
Really, that felt flat for me too.
Did it?
Yeah, that
See,
this
I thought
Colonel
that-
Brandon, I don't even know what to point to because he's a phenomenal actor, but I felt like, what's her name, Charity, the girl who plays Marianne, kind of felt like she did most of the work. And I
could see that. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
And in this one,
I do think that it's interesting though because Colonel Brandon has to say he has so little lines because he's so not a spoken person, but he has to explain so much emotion all the time, and that was where he fell a little bit flat. It's like he just couldn't. I don't think he got it all across.
Yeah, because in the book there's a line between Eleanor and Colonel Brandon where it says that because the society they're now in is not very intellectually stimulating, Eleanor found in Colonel Brandon that what she was missing. And they would always, they would just form this relationship because they were kind of on an equal level and had a lot to talk about. And she really felt for him, that he was now kind of getting supplanted by Willoughby. But yeah, I feel like in this one, I kind of want the mom and Colonel Brandon to get together. There's only a 5-year difference. They're both very quiet people.
Yeah.
And again, I see Marianne really going through a change at the end. But I think it was the 70s version where they kind of mirrored that too, where now Colonel Brandon is reading the books she likes to read, and there's more of a mutual learning what the other one likes because their temperaments are so different.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I think that the Marianne in this adaptation she did a really nice job of you see her change in the film, which I feel like sometimes is missing in some of the other movies is you don't really see a change, you just see her kind of get more resolved. But this one I feel like I saw her grow.
Yeah.
Like they did a really nice job of like rounding her character. The actress did a really nice job of like still maintaining that flightiness, but then kind of like bringing it in and realizing like, to respect her, how her sister handled things and like,
growing up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really, really, really like that. But I think that Colonel Brandon's character kind of fell short for me. But he had a lot to like contest with because I.
Oh yeah, I don't.
Alan Rickman did such a phenomenal job, and I like view that character so much in light of that.
Yeah.
That to see somebody else play it, it's like almost.
Yeah.
An equal, they're just gonna fall short each time anyway.
Something I really appreciate about this is when people usually have a hobby or a passion in movies, they are perfect at that. Like one example is they do this with kids a lot. In Chocolat, have you seen that movie?
Yes.
The kid is like, oh, I draw sometimes, but then he does like master level like sketches of like dying birds. I'm like, kids don't draw like that. They just don't. And in this one, like Marianne is trying a new piece on the piano, and it takes her a little while.
Yeah, I like that they actually
practice it.
Yeah.
Eleanor is drawing, but you can tell she's never received formal training. She also uses pencils and watercolors. And Jane Austen's sister Cassandra would actually do a lot of watercolors too. And it's also accurate in the way that it's was considered a woman's medium. So the great painters would do all their preliminary like sketches and planning for their oil paintings in watercolor, and women weren't. People wouldn't spend money for women to get trained in oils.
Yeah.
So that was the highest step they could go to was watercolors, basically.
Yeah.
And Eleanor is good at drawing and painting, but she's not like insane. Like
Yeah. No, they did a nice job of like not overdoing it and like overplaying certain
which
characters.
I rarely ever see in movies.
Well, I think that's the difference between. I feel like that's something that British movies do a really nice job of, like not overdoing those scenes. Because I feel like in Hollywood they tend to really like over.
Oh my God! Just to compare this with the American version of Pride and Prejudice, the black and white one, it's so slapsticky.
Yeah.
It's fan fiction. I love it so much. It is amazing, but it's definitely like you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, this is the American version of it. It's amazing. Everyone should go see it.
Yeah, I feel like they do a really nice job in this movie, showing like the building of the characters and taking the time to like let the talking actually like play out. Which I feel like sometimes that they cut in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they cut out in American movies to like get it to a certain length.
Like that scene of Eleanor just kind of running into a cave and breathing and like what she's going through. She doesn't have to explain it. And these are two characters that you need a lot of skill and subtlety, because with Marianne I see a lot of dramatic overacting, just over the top emotions, which this version did not do. And then with Eleanor, there was this horrendous 80s version of this where Eleanor is played by a robot who does not have. I don't know how this person ever became an actress, but it's just so mechanic and awful and terrible. And because there's so much going on underneath for Eleanor, you really need to fine-tune that as an actor and kind of bring that out, which I think Hattie Moran did an excellent job. She's probably my favorite Eleanor, honestly. I even like her better than Emma Thompson. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I like them both in different ways, because
that's
you know what I'm saying. Like
it.
She was the most Eleanor in this one was spot on. Like she's exactly what when I was reading the book.
Oh yeah.
Everything from start to finish was exactly how I pictured it. Emma Stone like rewrote the whole thing. Like, Emma Thompson. Yeah, sorry. She rewrote. I mean, the quirkiness, like everything she did in the movie, it was brilliant. It worked very well, but it was not the book.
Well, and she herself
she was
said
a lot
that
older too.
She was like, really, you want me to star in this because I'm not the right age? And the director said, no, that'll make it even more poignant. Of like, you're this old virgin and you're never gonna find love, which it works. It totally works. It's just not exactly like the book, which is fine. I'm not one of those people who's like there's a difference between a book and a movie, and you are allowed to take liberties to make it work on screen.
Yeah.
I have a lot of things to say about Lucy Steele.
Oh, they did. I don't know what to say about her. She was
just about the character in the book. So this was Jane Austen's first full-length novel. I think before this she wrote a few other ones, including Lady Susan, which is a really short epistolary piece. And you can see, particularly with Lucy Steele, a lack of insight that has yet to develop, because she is famous for social commentary. And if you compare Lucy Steele to Charlotte Lucas in Pride and Prejudice, those two people are very similar in a way that they do not have a fortune. They need to marry to... Basically, this is your income. It's all fine to marry for love and stuff, but that was just not an option available to women at the time. And Charlotte Lucas ending up with the ridiculous Mr. Collins. They kind of give... Jane Austen gives that a little bit more freedom of saying, and there's a brilliant scene in the new Pride and Prejudice that Emma Thompson actually wrote, where she comes up to Lizzie and she goes, don't you dare judge me, because I'm a burden to my family and I need to marry somebody.
Oh yeah,
like,
I
it's not
that, yes.
an option. And Lucy Steele is in the exact same spot. I mean, at the end when she's going for the younger brother because she has the money, I'm like, yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, you need to eat. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, she was gonna be taken care of. I mean, she just wasn't gonna have a lot of money. Like they were. He had enough money to like. He was gonna be wasn't he gonna be a pastor?
yes, I can justify that nowadays when women actually have choices, but back then when that was your only, I just can't give Lucy Steele a hard time. And
I don't necessarily give her a hard time, but I don't like her.
really, because she's not a villain to me.
I never find her to be villainous. I just find her to be kind of weak and pathetic. She doesn't have strong opinions. She's very wishy-washy. She definitely like leans toward Eleanor because she like needs somebody to tell her, you know, somebody to like confide in, but at the same time somebody to like, I don't know. I almost feel like she likes the strength of Eleanor and how like reserved.
Well, she sees Eleanor as a threat for sure.
Yes. Yeah, I see that because there's a couple scenes.
And a lot of adaptations, like the one in the 70s, makes her out to be just a really nasty person, and I feel like you almost need to do that to justify me as the audience not liking her. This Lucy Steele, I was fine with. Also, her sister's freaking hilarious.
Yeah, she was so funny.
Her sister. It's so over the top, but in a really funny way.
Yeah, it was definitely a nice comedic relief in this.
Then in the 80s version, they're just awful to her all the time, which they're kind of awful in this version too, where she was like, oh, Eleanor said she's telling me about her hopes and dreams, and Marianne's like, ugh, disgusting.
Yeah, they were really big.
Like, damn, girl. And also in the book, Jane Austen does a lot of telling and not showing with this character, which is something I don't particularly enjoy. Something that's guilty of that in comparison would be, for example, The Europeans by Henry James, or it's just in the text telling me like, oh, Lucy Steele's not very educated, she's not smart, she's not interesting, but then with the exception of one of her lines, that's not reflected in her dialogue. So I'm like, you need to show me these things in her behavior and not just tell me about it in the paragraphs. But this is a very minor flaw in Jane Austen, someone being that young, writing something this amazing, and then you can see the improvements in later books where she does that work, where she gets better at it. I just, even when I was first reading
like in
it,
Emma, you can see,
yes,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like the character development from that to that, you can see like, I forget her name, but the one that, the best friend.
That she's trying to kind of bring up in the world.
Yeah, and you can see like in that character,
absolutely,
like she is less fortunate. She isn't as educated. She doesn't have an opinion about things. And you can kind of see it in this one, but like it's definitely
hard.
not as, like you have to look for it. Like if you hadn't read the book, you wouldn't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually get it more from the sister just because she's so off the record.
But
that,
the
like,
sister wasn't like that in the book. That was just something this
I know, but that's
yeah.
So yeah.
I also think it's kind of funny that this one steals a lot of things from the Emma Thompson one, like Marianne running out in the rain and then getting sick from that. In the book and some other versions, she just is kind of mentally exhausted, and then from the journey over, she catches a cold, and then it's a slowly progressive thing.
They just say that she gets sick. She basically gets sick in the book from just taking long walks in the rain and then just like being overly stressed.
Right,
they
but
make it more of a dramatic scene in this
like,
one.
He's running out on his horse and he's trying to find her.
I feel like in the movie though, you kind of need that build up. Like you need that scene to like make a break from like Willoughby kind of, which I want to talk about him.
Oh yeah, we need to talk about Willoughby. Go on.
I don't like how they cast him in this.
What? Dominic Cooper's like one of my favorites.
No. I think he's great, but I think that he has the most innocent looking face I've ever seen, and it's hard for me to see
his little baby face.
Yeah, it's like so hard for me from start to finish to villainize him. Like I had a hard time not liking him.
I see that evil spark in his eye. I got you, Dominic.
No.
Yeah. I love him in this.
They did the chemistry between those two was
phenomenal. I don't think there's any other version that does it that well.
The chemistry was beautiful, but that one little, his appearance, I had a problem with like how sweet he looks. that I like wanted to like him through the entire show, and like I didn't like him, but it was hard for me to believe that it was hard for me to buy in to like his past story of like hooking up with this girl and like leaving her to be pregnant and then just kind of like walking off and like acting like she was nothing.
I also don't understand why they have this whole tension between him and Colonel Brandon. They never explain that because Colonel Brandon doesn't find out that Willoughby's a bad dude until he receives that letter.
Yeah.
So why is he beforehand like doing like the evil laser eyes at him, and they have that whole conversation about what are your intentions towards Miss Marianne?
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
like, huh?
I actually that was a little disturbing too because I didn't understand it.
No,
Yeah,
they never
and
explain it.
It didn't make sense. They didn't have it in the book, and they definitely. I mean, in other adaptations I've seen, it wasn't there either.
No.
It was like right after that, and it
Also
didn't
the
really match his
duel,
character
yeah. No.
at all for me.
No.
Like it didn't make sense that he would be because he's so. What's the word I'm looking for? So like. Comes across so elegant and like not professional but like reserved, and then to have
He wouldn't
so
try
much,
to start something.
yeah,
with
like I just
Willoughby.
don't it just didn't buy it. But then that goes back to me just not being a huge fan with how Colonel Brandon was
Yeah,
like,
I
displayed
feel like
throughout the
I'm
entire thing.
now finally putting together all the pieces of why he didn't work for me. We kind of watched it together. I was doing other stuff while Stacey was watching it. And there's a duel scene in the middle of it, and you were like, what? And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this wasn't in the book. You were like, when did this happen? The duel?
like never see this. I have no idea where this is coming from.
I don't like the duel.
No.
It's super random.
Yeah, it didn't work for me.
I know a lot of ladies are like, ew, a duel. Not us. So
It just didn't fit.
it didn't fit. By the Regency era, I looked this up. Dueling was outlawed, so it would have been against the law. I do not see Colonel Brandon doing anything that's against the law. Also, you would not challenge someone who is not on your same hierarchy in society. I also don't see Colonel Brandon seeing Willoughby as
An equal
in
yeah.
anything, or yeah. It's like, so you fought for until first blood, and then what? Like, Colonel,
Yeah.
that's not gonna do it for Colonel Brandon.
No.
He's not gonna be like, okay, we're fine now.
We're done now.
Very, very strange. Also with Willoughby, they do such an excellent job of show don't tell, of him being so insensitive, like getting the horse for Marianne.
Yeah,
And
but not thinking about anything else past that.
No.
Like he's just so. They did a nice job with his build up. I just his performance was amazing. It was just I had a hard time.
you want them to put I
had a hard
a
time.
mask on him.
Yeah,
And
basically. Like I don't know something. It was just I had a hard time with like, I guess sometimes appearance does matter in the sense that if you get cast in a role that doesn't look like the person, I have a hard time buying into it regardless.
Also, the other thing is when they talk, him and Marianne are reading books together. And they're like, oh my God, my favorite poet, mine too. Those are not Marianne's books. Colonel Brandon brought those books for her. She cannot afford to have books. She does not have books. Like, she lost that entire library with all the other stuff that her dad had. And it's another one of these great little details of, like, she might connect with Willoughby at the moment, but who really is bringing her, like, the sheets of music and the flowers and the this and the that, and then Willoughby's kind of just
buying her a horse that she has no money to support to make her look bad.
And also when he shows her the villa, and he's like, only a quarter of this house is in use. Like, that's terrible. And I'm like, yeah, probably because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
And your relative can't afford to, like, have the whole house in use for one person. Like, it's just these little things
he's kind of ridiculous. Like, his character in general is, like...
aware of anything.
No.
Like, how money works. Or
No. But I do think that they did a nice job in this adaptation of, like, his guilt. Because that's missing in some of the other movies. Or, like, that scene where he comes to talk to...
Yes.
Like, the fact that they put that in there, I think was so needed in that movie. Because you kind of, like... Up until that point, you never understand, like, why she, like, forgives him. Like, and lets him go. You know what I mean? Like Marianne I feel like that whole scene needed to be there for Marianne, for me to buy into like Marianne, like just letting
Moving
it go
on.
and like moving on.
And also
it's almost
Marianne
like
listening to it
Yeah.
and being on the like top of the stairs. I don't think that was in the book, and it's not in any
It's
of the
not
other
in the book. Actually,
adaptations.
she tells her.
And
is
I
what
love
happens.
Marianne just listening to
Yeah.
it and her look down, like, oh, just such a great performance.
Yeah, it was done beautifully.
And in so many other ones, Willoughby really dominates this scene and is kind of like, this is my moment to explain myself. And then Eleanor kind of feels bad for him. That does not happen in this version. Eleanor's like, get the F out of this house. Like, I'm about to call 911.
Yeah,
you
like-
are not, nothing's okay.
Yeah,
I love that.
love
Yeah.
She like stood up for the she's like, and you just like left her. Like, I don't even
Yeah.
care what you did to my sister. Like, let's just talk about what you did before you met my sister. Like, I love that.
Yeah, he's not paying child support.
Yeah, you're
He's not.
You are a piece of.
Yeah.
I really that was very that was a great scene. It really did a nice job.
The scene where Marianne she doesn't almost die because this is a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah.
But when my first contact with any Jane Austen was actually the Emma Thompson version. I thought she was gonna die. I was like, no, they're killing Marianne.
Yeah.
And then she's like, she's totally fine. Like, nothing happens. But it still kind of gets me every time. I'm like, oh no, she's not okay. What's gonna happen?
Agreed.
Love that. I also like. Okay, so with Jane Austen novels, there isn't a lot of sexy times because you just can't have that.
Yeah.
But that is really what is lacking for me in a lot of. Even though romance is my favorite genre, I can't do a lot of modern romance novels because it's just that, and they don't do the work. It's like, oh, I saw this woman, and there's a spark, and she's the one, and our genitals are magnetically attracted to one another.
There's no like build up.
There's no build up.
Yeah, there's no build up. There's no like you can't see like that's one thing that I love about Jane Austen's books is that there's a development of character.
Yes, you know why these
see
people are
them,
together.
You see why, and then you see why they're together, and it makes sense. It's not just like two random people like seeing each other from across the way and being like, oh, you're the love of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's not real.
I love my cowboy novels, but it's like they're married after a week.
Yeah.
Like, I just know you're the one. I'm like, you don't know this person. And this version does, just like the Pride and Prejudice one, the new one, just an excellent job of adding very sexy things in there that aren't sexy, but they make it sexy. Like just a shot of hands touching. There's a lot of sexual energy in that, but nobody's naked. Nobody's even making out. And in this version, there's a few scenes that do that really well, like Edward just chopping wood outside, and he's fully dressed, but he's not wearing his like vest or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is sort of inappropriate, kind of. And I'm like,
well, her facial expression is what makes it seem so. She like is so like shocked and like
he's doing like a wet
mesmerized,
t-shirt
like
contest.
She like can't turn away for a second. You see her kind of stumble, and you can like feel the tension.
Love that.
Yeah, they did a really nice job. They did a nice job of just like cutting in certain points and like close and getting really close to certain.
Taking their time with that.
They just like the cuts and the edits was done really nicely in this.
Yeah.
Just like never really any dragging moments. Like I never felt bored, which some of the BBC I have in the past. In some of these, you know, they just let it dringle a little bit too long, and you're just like, okay, cut it.
That's true.
Cut it.
That's true. I just want to talk about some of the other adaptations really quick. The scene where Lucy confesses to Eleanor that she's engaged to Edward. That scene in Sense Sensibility and Sea Monsters, they're being like attacked by a sea monster. Eleanor has to fight them all off, and Lucy's not realizing what is happening and just keeps telling her story while Eleanor's like fighting these tentacles. It's hilarious in the book. Like, it's so funny, and it just adds to Lucy being completely oblivious, and I love it. Also, the reason why Marianne falls in love with Willoughby is because she has like the latest model of like flipper feet, and he always wears them. Basically, I just love Sea Monsters. Everyone should read it. It's hilarious.
I haven't read it yet, so I can't really add much to it, but she's been talking about it nonstop.
I love it.
And I did like the it's by the same author, right? That did the Pride and Prejudice zombies.
It's not. No,
Oh,
it's
it's not?
actually a different one. I don't know their names.
Okay.
The Lincoln Vampire Slayer and the zombies one. That's the same author.
I didn't like Lincoln Vampire.
I didn't see it.
It was bad.
Also, the composer's excellent. I love the music. His name is Martin Phibbs. He also did the New Victoria, the New Persuasion, and North and South, which all have just soundtracks that stay with you and are really memorable, fit with the mood of the. I love the music in this.
Yeah, no,
it's
it was
gorgeous.
really beautifully done, and it was never overwhelming where it was just there.
Yeah.
You know, it like just played along perfectly with the scenes. It didn't like overwhelm or, I don't know.
Yeah. You know what wasn't gorgeous in this?
What?
The pink and yellow combination that we
Oh
need
my
to
god, that
talk
was so
about.
annoying. I do not know why they chose to make Marianne have an obsession with pink and yellow together. But in every scene that she dresses up, she has something pink and something yellow on. And the clash just, I want to like go and talk to the person who did the dressing. I'm like, no, this did not work for me. It didn't make any sense for me. Yeah.
Yeah, stay away from cream-colored things, especially if you're a white person. It's a difficult color to pull off.
Yeah,
God.
it just was really horrible.
Speaking of white people, I love how people try to like adapt this into a modern setting and are like, you know what this needs? More white people. I'm calling out Sense and Sensibilities. Terrible. Also, from Prada Donata, I see you. You're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. Have you seen From Prada Donata? It was like the Latino version of Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that one.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Oh wait, what was the horrible, just horrible adaptation? It was like Sense.
That's the one I'm
And
talking about.
Sensibility.
Yeah, where she's making like perfume or soaps or something.
Oh god, please
Sense.
don't watch
Oh,
that.
God,
ever.
terrible.
It was really bad. The acting was horrible. Development was god awful, and the modern version was not okay.
I think we talked almost about everything I had. I do like the neighbors, the cousin of the mom. In a lot of versions, and the mother-in-law, very over the top, very annoying, and I get that they're supposed to be annoying, but I think in this one you kind of felt his goodwill of, oh, I just want to come over and invite you to my house, and here's a turkey I got for you. And
Yeah, I feel like in other versions, like I've always like just really just annoyed by that character,
Yeah,
but in this
very
one they did a
intrusive.
nice job of like, you know that he's annoying, but it's done out of like the goodness of his heart.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, oh, he's ridiculous, but he's doing all this stuff. You know, like it plays into the character a little bit more, where you're just like, well, okay, this is why he did this for them. You know what I mean? Like it's not. It never really made sense why before, like he was so ridiculous that why was he being good? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
it just
I
there
get
was
what you're saying.
didn't play well to me. I do want to do a shout out to a couple. I do like some of the the normal like the Pride and Prejudice zombies. I love that, the new adaptation.
Me too.
Um,
Yes.
And
Great movie, great book.
I love Clueless, and I'm sorry you might not like agree
No,
with
I
me.
can't get through it. But I can't get through any of the. There's a Aisha, which is also Emma, but a modern version. I couldn't get through that one either.
I don't think I've seen that one.
I do love Bride and Prejudice. It's the Bollywood version.
Oh,
of
I
Pride
haven't
and Prejudice.
seen that.
It's amazing. I've
have
seen
to
it
see
so
that.
many times. It's awesome. It has songs in it.
Uh-huh.
It's got dance numbers in it.
Oh, and you're sold on anything with dance numbers.
It's really cute. Oh, because that one, the Bride and Prejudice, does a really good job of also addressing. There's not just a difference of financial status between the two, but because she's Indian and he's American, they bring the aspect of colonialism into it as well.
Oh, I like that.
It's brilliant. It's like, it's got all the fun colors and all the Bollywood things, but it also has some serious aspects to it and kind of talks about some modern day issues.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
You have anything else?
Any more? Yeah, basically, I love the cast of this. I love how beautiful it is.
No, it's really good. from start to finish. Like I said, I only had a couple issues with the casting. I really wish they would have cast differently for Colonel Brandon.
Colonel Brandon. And I love that actor. He does a great job. I'm not trying to knock him at all.
No. He's a great actor. It just didn't work for me in this movie.
Something
and
didn't
it might have
click.
been how they just wanted him to portray it. It just didn't work for me.
No, totally. Also,
and I loved Willoughby in it, and I wouldn't even though it was hard for me to buy in, he did such a great job. Like, I still liked it. It just facially didn't work for me.
I don't like your face.
I don't like your face, but your acting's amazing.
I like your face too much. I did like Margaret in this too. She had a little bit of a role, the younger sister. A lot. As I was reading it, I was like, I would just cut the younger sister out. And a lot of versions do not include her, and I'm totally okay with that. But she has these little moments of giving insight into the story. Like when she's like, oh, Willoughby's a scoundrel, isn't he? And if Marianne comes back to the house, she's just going to be reminded of him and just...
Yeah,
she does
definitely
contribute.
Yeah, she definitely adds to the storyline in this one, which in some characters, in some adaptations, there's like nothing there. So.
And also that scene in the beginning where she's like, someone's using my pony, and then Dan Stevens is like, we're going to ride a horse around. I'm like, this is amazing. I love this. Like, it's really, really cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is basically it.
Yeah, that's all I got to say.
We love Jane Austen things. We might do some other ones in the future. Some other period dramas.
Yeah, because we're never going to get Sam on one of these. It's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. But yeah, we'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, it's Sam. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Modern Life. If you have any suggestions for topics you want to hear us talk about, you can email us. Our email is modernlifepod@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both of those is @modernlifepod. You can find us on Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify. Our YouTube channel is up as well. And if you want to donate it all to the podcast, I do have a link for a tip jar down below in the podcast description, as well as our new website link, which is up, and you can find all of our episodes there as well. Again, thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.